we ended up moving from Minnesota to Oklahoma, Fort Sill. We're there for just a short period of time. I think I was maybe 4 when we moved to California, and then from California to Thailand, from Thailand to Hawaii, from Hawaii to Kansas, Kansas to New York, New York to Washington, D.C., and then D.C. to Oklahoma back.
Oh, this is a special edition because it's one of our own. It's Jon Steuber. Jon, welcome to Beyond the Bio.
Thanks, everybody.
So what we want to do is we want to get to know who you are. Right? Tell me just a little bit about your upbringing. Where are you from?
Originally from Minneapolis, Minnesota.
Because your story is one that bounces around quite a bit. Am I wrong?
Yeah. So
because of the military family, right?
Military brat. My dad was in the Army. He was an officer when I was little, but I have an older brother. When my brother was, when my brother came up, he was not an officer. My dad wasn't. My dad was enlisted. He enlisted in the Army when he was 17, went to Vietnam straight away, was there for about 36 months, came back to the United States, did a number of different jobs and things. And,
to emphasize on the point that you're talking about, anybody that knows anything about the military is your dad went all the way up to the rank of E7 and then became a commissioned officer. So that means he had a ton of time in. So he was like the badass of all badasses, because most officers, they just go to, they're cadets and they come in, they're like 21 years old trying to tell old guys what to do. Your dad was the exact opposite, which made him,
unique,
way different.
Yeah, for sure. Provided a perspective that, a lot of people in the military don't have. Probably more people have that now because, you've got a lot of military folks that are, they go in the enlisted ranks and then they decide, they take advantage of their GI Bill. They go to school, they get their degree, they go through OCS, and and then eventually become officers. So it's probably happening more, but very few of them have the same level of actual fighting experience that my dad had.
And then knowledge from being at the bottom all the way to the top. Like he's very unique in that.
Pretty amazing guy. And so when he got his commission, we ended up moving from Minnesota to Oklahoma, Fort Sill. We're there for just a short period of time. I think I was maybe 4 when we moved to California, and then from California to Thailand, from Thailand to Hawaii, from Hawaii to Kansas, Kansas to New York, New York to Washington, D.C., and then D.C. to Oklahoma back kind of where it all started.
And that's how you're sitting here with me.
Yeah.
Because that's where we met.
Yeah, in 1998. That's the summer of my senior year of high school is when we moved here, and that's where you and I met. Had another friend of ours whose dad was a general, and we were hanging out over there, and that's where you and I first met.
Was Lieutenant Colonel born at the time?
Oh, that's right, Lieutenant Colonel.
That's right.
That's right.
So, little known fact, I got myself into some trouble as a youth, and I spent my second half of my senior year living at your house.
Yep.
So that's another testament to your mom and your dad for allowing this random ass kid from Lawton to move into the house.
Yeah, man, I was good at picking up strays, though, man. I always had some interesting friends growing up.
Yeah.
Part of that is just because anytime I moved almost every year in school. I went to 4 different high schools, 3 different middle schools, bunch of different elementary schools, and you just have to adapt and overcome. And
you got to learn how to make new friends all the damn time.
You do, and there's there are some kids, military brats, that don't really adapt that way. They kind of crawl into a shell, or maybe they have some issues adapting. That was just not me. I'm a very social person. I like to be out in the mix of things. I don't have an issue with meeting new people and trying to build relationships quickly. And, that's what I love about Beyond the Bio, is I'm somebody that enjoys, meeting new people, building relationships, and those sorts of things. And
Hearing their story, right?
yeah, absolutely. I think before you can influence other people, you have to allow yourself to be influenced. And I think that it's important that we're creating a space where people can, that you can go a little deeper with them and share their story a little more. And we have such a meme mentality where you see a short video of somebody and you just think that you make this assumption that you know who they are, when in reality you really don't. So that's why I like doing this, and I'm happy that I'm getting to do it as well.
Well, we squeezed you in.
Yeah, we found a spot.
So anyway, yeah, you obviously moving around, all that, you touched on something, and that kind of brings up my next question is, so you've been around all these different places. Which one would you say was your favorite spot? I think I know the answer, but tell me what it is, and what was it about that area that you liked the most?
Most influential place.
My guess?
Go for it.
Before you answer, Hawaii.
Yeah.
I knew it.
Yeah. Easily the most influential place that I've ever lived. And I've lived in some cool places. Thailand was pretty cool, but I was pretty young when we lived there. And we were a little sheltered. My dad was the only one in the family that spoke the language. My father was fluent in Thai. And
fluent in Thai and 4 other languages.
Yeah. Yep. He spoke
Superman.
Cambodian, Vietnamese, Thai. He could get his way through Mandarin, Chinese. So pretty skilled when it came to languages. But it was challenging growing up there, being there at my age, because unlike living in the United States, even if we moved to a new base, we were still on a military installation, and we had all of the benefits of being around the military folks and the
Burger
schools
King.
and all those things, of course. But there we lived in an apartment in downtown Bangkok. We were affiliated with the American Embassy there, but my 2 best friends were 2 Thai kids that whose parents, the dad was basically the janitor for the apartment that we lived in, and they did not speak English. But I hung out with them, as much, if not more, than anyone that I went to school with. So I was just limited in my ability to interact with people there. But once we got to Hawaii, a little bit older, certainly more adventurous, surfing, scuba diving. We spent a lot of time together as a family there, just doing whatever we could to just get to know Hawaii. And it had the most profound impact of any single place that I've lived.
Were you by the water there?
Yeah.
Okay.
You're all, yeah. There's
Are you always by the water?
You're
in Hawaii?
always by the water. If you can't see it, you can smell it,
So you said surfing. I know you've brought that up to me. How does a person from Minnesota, when they get to Hawaii, did you just go find out how to do it, or did somebody teach you? What happened with that?
Yeah. So when we first moved there, our quarters weren't ready. So we lived in the Halakoa Hotel for a little over a month. And while we were there, there was an older gentleman that was working there at the hotel, and he would see us every day. And he was kind of like, eventually he was kind of like, you guys are here all the time. Like, why are do you guys live in this hotel? And
was he your Miyagi?
Yeah, he was. He was my Miyagi. He was my Miyagi. In fact, he went to a gift shop and he purchased a styrofoam surfboard for me. And one day we were coming out of the elevator and he was just standing there with it. He was so happy to give this to me, and he was like, "You have to try this. You have to go out there and try it." And so watching other kids do it, and being brave enough to kind of go out there and mess around on it. I did break it. He got me another one.
Okay.
And then eventually, we went to enough beaches to where I was renting surfboards. My dad or my mom would go rent a surfboard for me just to make sure that I liked it, because I was the king of doing things and then falling in love with it, being really gung-ho about it, and then
squirrel.
Yeah, and just I'm off to something else.
I still do that.
Yeah. So, then eventually my dad, bought me my first surfboard. But I love being around the ocean. I miss it, obviously, being landlocked in Oklahoma.
Yeah,
it's not the same. But here recently, we've kind of re-engaged with the water lifestyle. We've gotten our certifications in scuba diving and those sorts of things. So we're kind of back at it. But
Did you start your first? Was that when you started? Was in Hawaii when you first experienced scuba?
no, the first time I went scuba diving, I was 5 years old. My dad had a custom wetsuit made for me because we were living in California and the water is really, really cold. And so we were Northern California in Carmel.
At five,
Yeah.
5 years old, were you like what 6'1"? If anybody's listening, John's like 6'9".
No,
So
I was. It was interesting, man, because I'm a pretty claustrophobic person.
yeah, me too.
But for some reason, because you have to wear the hood and the mask and the whole 9 yards. I mean, it's reminiscent of the little brother in A Christmas Story, where he can't put his arms down.
Oh, I know exactly what you're talking about.
But completely packed into this little wetsuit, and I wasn't able to wear a tank or anything like that. So I did what's called buddy breathing. So off of my dad's tank, I had the mouthpiece, and we just went out into the open ocean at 5 years old, and it was scary, but it was a lot of fun. And then when we moved from California to Thailand, there wasn't a weekend I can remember where we weren't out at the ocean diving. And so that was a huge part of my life then, especially. So I've always, loved being around the ocean. And oddly enough, I've lived in Oklahoma longer than anywhere else in my life, and I'm nowhere near an ocean. But some of my fondest memories are of those times, doing those things with my family.
Yeah, I mean, shoot, I wish I had a chance to live in Hawaii. Not happening right now. So that whole military lifestyle, that moving around, that makes you uniquely suited to really kind of understand the needs, of military families, which I think makes you extremely effective in everything that we do with veterans and all that good stuff. So that's not something that a lot of people can bring to the table and kind of get you that really immediate rapport with people, which is awesome. So when you guys left Hawaii, let's say, really, when you got back to Oklahoma, that was kind of the end of your high school, right? That's where we met. And then we graduated, 98, right? So the fact that I had to ask is weird. But so take me from there. What did you do? I mean, I know, but tell the folks listening.
Tell the people. Yeah. So after we graduated, I wasn't sure what I wanted to do school-wise. I mean, I knew that, kind of the natural progression is graduate.
What were your thoughts? What were your top 10 or your top 5 of like, I want to do this? Because with you've got so many influences going on around you with your brother, your dad, and all that. I mean, you would think naturally that you would have been, well, I know, knowing them, you weren't pushed into anything, but you had to have thought military, maybe, or no?
There was absolutely there was a pressure there. A lot of it was self-imposed, but there was absolutely a pressure to at least explore that option. But for me, my brother's a Marine pilot. From the moment he walked out of the theater when he saw Top Gun, he wanted to be a pilot, and he pursued that dream, became a pilot, joined the military. I mean, that was the path that he went on.
He did the path that most people, when they went and saw Top Gun for the first time, wanted to do. He actually did it.
He actually did it. Yeah,
because I wanted to do that too. I didn't do it. I'm sitting here talking to you.
No,
and we are not in a plane.
No, and he was too big for fighter jets, and his head was too big for the helmets to fly helicopters. So he wound up being a C-130 pilot. And now flies privately for a wealthy individual. But no, there was some pressure there. My grandmother was with the Red Cross and is one of very few females who actually went overseas during World War II. Her 21st birthday was spent on a landing craft going into the Normandy Beach. and she was a donut dolly. So she would travel to different areas along the front lines throughout Europe, and she would bring coffee and donuts to the soldiers.
Cigarettes, I bet.
Yeah, it was just a really unique perspective there. So my grandmother served. My dad's dad, my grandpa Bill Steuber, he fought with General Patton.
Yeah. Is that the one that looks like Abraham Lincoln?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
Yep. And every year I look more and more like him, man.
Yeah.
And then my mom's dad was in the Navy. My oldest is in the Navy. He's going through submarine school right now. And so absolutely some pressure there.
But what did you have in mind for yourself?
Yeah.
Because I mean, that's the toughest thing that we all talk about, because we talk about this all the time. My daughter, your kids, like finding out what the hell you want to do. It's tough. So what did you think? What were your top 5?
One of the things that intrigued me, especially when we lived in Washington, D.C., was Secret Service.
Yeah.
But, it was something I looked into, but nothing I ever really pursued. Honestly, when I graduated from OU, I was going down the retail management track, and I had a lot of experience in college managing stores and doing those sorts of things, but it was just not something that I really wanted to do.
But the thing is with what we're talking about here, with your family, military or not, whatever, I think what happened is, and hell, I might be wrong, but you come from a family of leaders, wouldn't you say?
Yeah. For sure.
And so just being in a leadership role, whether that's I think that was your natural progression, was to be in something like that. And that's ultimately where you ended up, right?
Yeah. So, when I graduated, I was still in limbo. I still didn't know what I wanted to do, what I wanted to do. And, but I had met my now wife, Jamie, and there was no doubt that I wanted to be with her for the rest of my life. And I knew pretty quickly that I had to find something that could sustain us. And so my aunt, who was a recruiter on the East Coast for Progressive Insurance, which I had never even heard of Progressive Insurance.
I didn't know that.
She was a recruiter, and she reached out to me shortly after I graduated, and she said, "Hey, I don't know if you've given insurance any kind of thought, but they're hiring in Virginia Beach, and I tell people this all the time. All I heard was beach and hiring, and that was enough for me to water. Yeah, to go out there. Yeah. So I flew out to Virginia because Oklahoma wasn't hiring at the time, at least Progressive in Oklahoma, and so she made some inroads for me to get an interview out there. Interviewed, got the job. That was in September of 2003. Moved out to Virginia Beach as just a claims adjuster. So, handling small injury claims, handling property damage claims, doing coverage and liability. And, about 2 years into it, I liked the job. I didn't particularly care for Virginia Beach, because what I didn't hear when she said Virginia Beach is hiring is, it's Virginia. There were that particular area I wasn't a big fan of, but
because you did some high school in Virginia too, didn't you?
I did, yeah. So I had some experience with Virginia, but as soon as an opportunity opened up for me to move to Oklahoma, Jamie and we moved from Virginia back to Oklahoma, and that was in May of 2005, and have been here essentially ever since. But in that time, I had an 18-year career at Progressive. I just resigned in December 22nd of 2021. And
joined forces with your old buddy Rob.
Yep. But it's interesting.
What a wise decision.
So my dad spent over 40 years in the military.
Yeah, that's a lot.
And he passed in November of 2020. And it's so crazy because I was just looking through my LinkedIn, and on my 17th anniversary at Progressive, he sent me a message, and he congratulated me on being there for that long, and just how rare it was, to stay somewhere and have that longevity and that willingness to commit yourself to a company. And when he passed away, suddenly, I really took some time to evaluate my life and where I was at. And I was a leader at Progressive. A lot of the goals that I set to accomplish while I was there, I accomplished. And I loved the people I worked with, that I worked for. But I needed something more.
Sure.
I needed something more from not just from what I was getting from work, but I wanted to have more time with my family. My father's passing put so much focus on how precious time is, and how precious family is. And my dad spent a lot of time deployed, and my brother as well. And so what they did was admirable. But I know both of them, would say that as they've gotten older, and especially with my dad towards the end, before he passed, how incredibly important the time with your family is, and the time with the people that truly matter.
Yeah.
And so, when I made the decision to leave, I wanted to find a line of work or do something that I was able to continue to scratch that leadership itch, continue to help coach and develop people, but also have time for myself and for my family and for my friends and the things that truly were important to me. And so, thankfully, I was blessed with a recommendation from a friend of mine, Nate Henry, who said, I know a couple guys that have an insurance agency that you need to talk to. They might be able to help you either, kind of figure out a pathway for you to do your own insurance agency, or maybe they might have an opportunity for you.
Sure.
And so what I thought was going to be a 10-minute conversation with my now business partner, Jimmy Vasquez, and Brady Neal, turned into an hour-long conversation, and it turned into essentially a job offer where I could do exactly what I wanted to do. I could have ownership in myself and my own business. I could make my own hours. Eventually, I could hire people and be a part of that. And the other opportunity was to work with you and come over to Cardinal, which is a really good foundational company for me to learn the lending industry as well.
Yeah.
And so, being able to have kind of my own business and be able to learn another industry has been really, really fantastic. And so, I've been able to achieve a lot of the goals that I set out to do, because I'll tell you what, after 18 years leaving a company that I've invested so much of my life in, and they have equally invested in me, with the training and all of the different things they've done to help me, that's an incredibly difficult decision.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's a game changer. Yeah. You go from your stability and your all that to, but I mean, honestly, that's a thrill seek, man. I mean, I've lived my life that entire way, and it can be super rewarding and super scary.
Yeah. No, I've always, and that's one thing I've always admired about, you and really anybody that is in the line of work where you are so dependent on yourself to be successful. That yes, everything that in especially in real estate and insurance, yes, you rely on other people. But they won't help you if they know that you're not going to bring your game to the table as well. Sure. And so to be successful in this industry, it is challenging. But there are some really fantastic people in this industry. And so I've been incredibly blessed with just, the things that have kind of fallen into place for me to feel comfortable making that decision. And I still wasn't comfortable, but there was a confidence there that, that has really kind of helped me to embark on this journey. And it's only been 8 months at this point. My only regret is not doing it sooner.
Yeah.
So when I go back to that Zillow message, and I think about, my dad sending that to me and congratulating me on my 17 years, because he passed shortly after he sent that to me. It's remarkable to look back at it now, because I look back and I say, I'm proud of what I achieved. I'm proud of the fact that I spent that amount of time there, but I'm also incredibly proud and excited about the future.
Yeah. You mentioned earlier your family being a big deal. I know them. Tell me a little bit about your family. Who you got over there?
Yeah. So my wife and I just celebrated our 17-year wedding anniversary. We've been together for 20 years.
Okay.
And we have, so Tanner, although he is not my biological son, he is my son. When I met Jamie, Tanner was only 18 months old at the time. In fact, right before our first date, I called her just to make sure, everything was still on, and I could hear her crying in the background.
Yeah.
And at that point, Jamie and I we had only talked to each other and seen each other socially, but hadn't actually spent a lot of time getting to know one another. And so I asked her, I said, "So are you babysitting?" And she said, "Well, kind of. It's my baby."
Yeah. I'm going to tell you about this.
Yeah. And she said, "Look, if that's a deal breaker, I get it. I understand. I'm totally cool with it. And if you want to just remain friends and we don't take this to any level wherever this may go, I totally get it. I'm cool with it." And for a guy in his 20s that's still in college and all that, it's just kind of like, wow, there's a lot of things to consider there. So I obviously I agreed to continue the date. I didn't want that to step in the way of meeting somebody that could potentially be pretty amazing, which she is. But I called my mom and I said, "Hey, Mom, here's I know I told her that I was going out on a date and all this stuff, and she was like, you know what, you've give it a try, just don't even make it about that. Just see if you guys have chemistry and if you like being around each other, and don't let that be an obstacle. Because she could be an incredible friend. Who knows where this goes." And we went out on one date, and we've been together literally ever since.
Yeah.
Yep. And then we've been blessed to have two more children. So London Rose is my daughter. She's 13. And then Tennyson George is my youngest son, and he just turned 8. They both they're both April babies, so they just celebrated their birthdays. And then obviously Tennyson George, my dad was George Steuber, so his middle name for Tennyson. And then London Rose is my mom's name, so we kind of worked her name in there.
Do me a favor. So you've touched on this a little bit, but I know this is a large portion of kind of who you are, right? And that's what the point of this is. Tell me, in whatever way, how did your parents, your mom and your dad, influence your life?
Yeah. So, for my dad, he was always hard charging. I mean, you know him. He was always somebody that he just created his own path. I mean, for a lot of folks, when they went into the military, if you're going to be an officer, you went to West Point and you became an officer, and he went a totally different path. I mean, he went through probably one of the most difficult ways to get there that somebody can get there. And he was always larger than life. I mean, he was a big guy, but he had this booming voice. I mean, he commanded a room, and his ability to impact people's lives and speak. I mean, he was a fabulous speaker, and he was incredibly well read. I mean, obviously he spoke multiple languages, but he was just a wealth of information and perspective. And but he was also, take charge. Like, there was no such thing as an excuse with him.
Right.
And so, he was always somebody that while he was intimidating to most, he was just an incredibly powerful example of what a leader looks like. And as far as my mom, I mean, kind of a very similar thing. I mean, to be
an officer's wife,
especially an officer like my dad. I mean, when my dad was my age, when he was in Haiti, they were their base camp was taking fire. Guys were in the hotel next to the base camp, and they would take shots at them. And so, they knew that that was a security risk. They needed to go in and clean out this hotel. So, I'm sitting here having an interview at 42, and my dad was literally wearing night vision goggles, sweeping sweeping out a hotel that was filled with people that were shooting at him. So,
Yeah.
that. But to know as a wife, or even as a husband, to know that your spouse is engaged in that kind of activity, and to be able to, still put on a smile, still make sure lunches are done, still make sure dinner is ready, still make sure books are being read and school is being taken care of, plus managing that in the background is pretty impressive.
And keeping her own sanity.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's a thing.
And she knew so much more about what my dad was going through on his multiple deployments than she ever let on. And it wasn't until especially me, my brother was older, but when I was old enough that my dad would share some of the things that he was involved in. And it just puts so much perspective on, I'm sitting here, frustrated that my dad didn't come to a basketball game, or angry with him that he went on this deployment. But knowing that he knows that, and he knows that that's, probably a challenge for me, but being able to compartmentalize that stuff and get his mission done and then come back. And same thing for my mom. I mean, she had a mission too. It was to make sure that we were taken care of, that the finances were taken care of, that everything that needed to be done in my dad's absence was taken care of. And that when he came back, to an environment that was, a family united. Sure. And ready to welcome him and those sorts of things, and so her being a role model for just being a fantastic spouse and mother, and weathering those storms, because they weren't easy, was incredibly influential, not just in who I am, but who I choose to have around me. The people that I let into my life. I mean, I can walk into a group of people and walk away with friends, but as far as the core group of people that I let around me, that's, they have absolutely influenced that, because, honesty, integrity, work ethic, being able to communicate, being able to deliver a message that sometimes you don't want to hear, but delivering it in a way that, you can take it and do something with it. I mean, they were both very skilled at that. So yeah, they've had a profound impact on me. Same thing with my brother. I mean, my brother weathered those storms as well. And, and he's, married and with kids and multiple deployments. I mean, I don't think my brother could have gone on to accomplish the things that he has in his life without the examples that my parents have provided. Yeah. And I'm a firm believer that leaders don't just lead people, leaders make other people leaders. And that doesn't have to be in a formal sense, but having those examples and being able to kind of internalize those has helped me in my personal life, in my professional life. It's helped my, me to provide examples for my own children. And so, yeah, no, they've been absolutely instrumental in who I am today and why I am the way I am today.
So who is the person who's responsible for making you think that you were a golfer? Because this is something you've taken on later in life. Am I right?
Yeah. In fact, you played your first round with me.
That's right.
And it was,
but that's now
Surrey.
A thing for you, isn't it?
No, it was awful. I was terrible at it. Look, I always wanted to be a basketball player and do all these things. I'm not going to go pick up a basketball.
Because you're tall?
Just because I'm tall. Just, just like everyone thought I should join the military, everyone thought I should play basketball. But, you do have to have some semblance of skill to be able to play those games. And I certainly don't. I'm not sitting here saying that I'm a skilled golfer. But
I didn't say that either.
No one ever will. But it's not for lack of trying.
No, you get an A+ for that.
Yeah. No, it's I think all the other things that we were just kind of talking about, it does require a level of commitment and dedication. Sure. And,
And you've got a putting green in your backyard.
Yep, we just put a putting green in, so that's more for Tennyson. So Tennyson, unlike myself, and is
Skilled?
he does have some skills. Yeah,
Okay, good.
yeah.
Good for him.
He can pick up pretty much any sport or game that you show him pretty instantaneously. So
Another thing about John that's interesting is, and it's helped me along because I've always, when I was a kid, movies, right? I was a big movie buff. You probably, maybe one other person I know that's more of a movie buff than you, but you guys go all the time.
yeah,
Well, I mean, COVID must have been tough on you for that,
Yeah.
but always there,
Yeah.
right? That's a family thing that you guys do. He's kind of my sounding board for movies. Should I go see this? Yes, no, whatever. the
yeah,
case
and
is.
that was a big thing for with my dad too. When he would come back from deployment, then that was something that we could go quickly do, and it was just like it was just like putting on an old hat.
I went to a movie. You, and your dad went and saw the freaking Blair Witch Project, if
Yeah.
you recall, which was the weirdest movie. Speaking of which, if you had to go top 5, drop top 5 movies on us, and I'm going to make it even more difficult for you. None of them can be superhero movies. Go.
Oh yeah, well, I don't know that I would go superhero movie. Outlaw Josie Wales with Clint Eastwood is probably number one.
Is that right?
Yeah, it's right up there.
Okay.
It's one of my favorite movies of all time. Braveheart is absolutely there.
Yeah, it's a good one.
Absolutely there. Places in the Heart. That's going to be a weird one that people probably don't know much about.
Who's in that?
Gosh, now you're putting me on the spot, man.
Yeah, I don't know if it's your favorite if you can't tell me who's in it.
No, it's just it has some sentimental value to it. But it's Sally Field, John Malkovich is in it. Trying to think of the.
See, I know what you're talking about. The sentiment, like My Mom, Fried Green Tomatoes,
Oh yeah.
and what's the other one with all those Dolly Parton and all them?
Oh well, Steel Magnolias.
Yeah.
Which Steel Magnolias is
Isn't that wild that we're talking about Steel Magnolias?
It's in there.
and Fried Green Tomatoes on your Beyond the Bio.
Yeah, and then another kind of weird one that people probably don't know much about. It's maybe one of the best gangster films ever made, which is Miller's Crossing.
I know that one.
That's a Coen Brothers movie, and it's absolutely fantastic.
Yes, I agree.
Tarantino. I mean, it'd be easier to just narrow it down to kind of genre and just pull out 5. But man, top 5 is. But no, Outlaw Josie Wales for my money is one of the best movies ever made, and I absolutely love that movie. And Braveheart's right there as well.
Yeah, that's not a bad one.
Yeah.
Well, that's perfect, man. I feel like we've gotten to dig deep into who John is, but here's the deal. You're not going to like this. But I mean, we have to know who you are. There's another side to John that we all need to know, and that is that John is a goofball in a sense. And then John can do, it's his parlor trick. One I like to pull out at any moment is impressions. So, I mean, if somebody's going to get to know you, I mean, you're going to have to give us a taste of something.
Man.
And I think you know where I'm going with that. Do you want me to just make requests?
You can throw some out there.
Start with Peter Griffin.
Okay, Peter Griffin. So I can the one that I always like to do because it's just.
We'll do the one you like to do.
Yeah, it's when Peter is sitting at the table at the dinner table and he's drinking beer with Brian the dog, and Lois busts through the door and she goes,
Peter, are you drunk? He goes, nah, I'm just exhausted from drinking all night.
All right. I'll let you off the hook with that. That's good. All right. Well, good, man. I'm glad we did this. I'm glad we got to know you. Appreciate you coming on the show.
Yeah, man. Thanks.